Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Just a quick reminder that, all of these radio shows are videoed. They're put on our website. They're on YouTube. You can listen to us through our podcast on Google Play, Spotify, iTunes. Basically just search Brian Beatty Real Estate and you can find us in all different kinds of places, but wanted to make you aware of that as well. So we were talking about the increase in price reductions that we've seen locally, really regionally and nationally as well. In fact, it's worse nationally than it is here locally. But if you're considering selling your home, what are some strategies you can use to ensure you sell your home for top dollar? I mean, what does that process look like? What factors are involved? I mean, have you ever wondered how some agents are able to get more for a seller's home than others? And yes, experience does play a part in it, and experienced agents know that as a seller, you need options that best suit your specific needs, whether it's using our 2.4% listing commission option or our renovate to sell program or our guaranteed cash sale program, or maybe you want to do like a sale with a lease back or a home purchase contingency. The point is we have options to help you maximize the check you get at closing when you sell your home, and we have ways of making sure that if we go about this process, we know the different avenues we can take. We have options. So to learn more about our incentives, visit our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Remember, you can call or text me, 843-800-0065. That's 800-0065. Or you can email me, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So given the softening in the market, how do you as a seller maximize the money that you make when you sell your home? What are some common mistakes to avoid that actually cost you real money? So let's discuss some of the different kind of sellers that are out there. There's the person that's, hey, I'm moving. It's not a want or a thought, it's a reality. It's happening. Then of course you have the folks that say, hey, I'd like to sell if it makes sense, but nothing's pushing me out the door. I mean, I would need to sell before I buy, or, hey, I can't find what I want to make sense out of listing my house for sale, so I'm certainly not going to take that step. And then you have the people that say, well, what comes first? I mean, should I put my home on the market now and wait until I find something I like? Should I wait and put my home on the market once I'm ready to make an offer on something? How do I go about that? What's the right way of doing it? And what's the benefits? What are some disadvantages for these different options? And then you might have the person that says, hey, I've been trying to sell my house. It hasn't sold, which is confusing because I thought we were in a seller's market. So let's talk about some of these different strategies. And by the way, as I mentioned in my previous segment, for the folks that are trying to sell their home and it just hasn't worked out, or maybe they tried selling their home and they had something they liked, they wanted to make an offer on, but they couldn't sell their home in time. Why is that? What happened there? And as I mentioned, of the 2,800 homes that we have for sale in the Charleston Tri-County area, 1,700 of them have been on the market for more than 30 days. And by the way, the average days on market last month was just 19 days. So yes, there are different average days on market depending upon the area and the price range and the type of home and a multitude of factors. But the median days on market is like 4. So for us to have a significant amount of inventory that's been on the market for more than 30 days, it should perk up the ears of buyers out there, because it's obviously it's showing that you have some options. You have the availability to maybe go in, especially this time of year when things start to wind down a little bit, and see if you can beat up a seller. Obviously, as a seller, you don't want that to happen. You don't want to put that proverbial blood in the water and have people think that if they're going to make an offer on your home, the only way they're going to do that is if they can get a deal. So how do we create urgency? Well, let's start first with kind of the two main schools of thought when it comes to pricing. And there's no real right way or wrong way. Let me say that first, because it's all dependent upon your goals and the strategy, the overall strategy that we create when we sit down and we talk about what it is we want to accomplish and when we want to accomplish it by. So school of thought number one is, hey, let's price it at what it's worth. We've looked at comps in the area over the past 90 days. We know what's currently under contract to give us an idea of the current appetite for buyers, and we know what's on the market right now, i.e. our competition, and we're going to price it right in line with either what other people are currently asking, or maybe, and again, this is depending upon your area and your price range, but gosh, for years, we've really struggled with a lack of comparable data because the market was moving upward so quickly. I mean, we had basically runaway appreciation. So it was really hard to look backward at something that sold 3 months ago that was under contract 2 months prior to that, when at that point in time, 5 months ago, they were looking at what sold 3 months prior to that. Meaning there's a lag in data, right? Which is why if you've been listening to the show, you understand that we've been talking about market corrections for months now. We've been talking about a shift in the real estate market. We're finally starting to see the data suggest that. So that's the purpose of this whole show, is to help you guys get ahead of the curve, to become an informed consumer and make decisions that benefit you. So school of thought number one is, hey, we'll price it at what it's worth. We'll assess the competition. And, let's say there are 3 homes for sale in our neighborhood and they all span between 500 and 525. Maybe we list ours at 495 and generate a bidding war. We steal the buyers from the other listings. The other school of thought is, hey, buyers know that the market is softening a little bit. And when I say soften, I do want you guys to understand that that does not mean that we are in a tailspin. We are not crashing right now. It's just that we're slowing down. We're returning to a more normal paced market. Now, because of that change, people are using anything they can to their advantage on the buyer side. And if we know that buyers want some sort of a deal, because any buyer out there at any point in time wants a deal on something, who doesn't, right? Obviously, that's really tough to do when you're competing against 10 other people. There wasn't really much in the form of a deal over the past 2 years on a specific piece of real estate. The deal was you got a really low interest rate and locked into a house before prices went up and before interest rates went up. But now, given the fact that we're starting to see twice as many price reductions now as we were seeing 3 months ago, maybe we inflate the price just a little bit and account for the fact that a buyer is going to want to negotiate with us. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do this, but we do have to take an, if this, then that approach to pricing. So when we meet with somebody, we walk through their house, I send them the comparable properties beforehand, and I want to have a discussion with them before walking through the door to say something along the lines of, hey, I just sent you some properties that have recently sold, that are under contract, and that are on the market. I want to pay particular attention to this property at 123 Main Street. It seems to be very similar to your house based on what you described. Can you please compare your home to that home? Oh, and by the way, are there any other homes that have sold in your neighborhood that I'm not aware of? I mean, over the past 2 years, take my neighborhood for example. We've had maybe a handful of sales over the past 2-3 years that have actually hit the market and have been represented by real estate agents. The majority of transactions were done off market. Well, you as an owner might have an inside scoop that the real estate agent doesn't, because the data is the data. You know what's happening in your neighborhood better than anybody else. Well, some do. And so we want to get a really good understanding of what we're walking into before we get there, so that we can sit down side by side with you, show you the comparable properties, show you the details that you as an everyday consumer don't have access to. You don't know if the seller paid the buyer's closing costs. You don't know if the price was adjusted by $1,000 or $30,000 based on repairs that needed to be made. All of those details we as real estate agents have access to. You do not. And that plays a big part in overall pricing. If something sold for $600,000, but they paid $10,000 in closing costs and made $10,000 in repairs, that's $580. That's not $600. So when we sit down with folks side by side and we look at these properties and we compare and we contrast, we're also talking about the overall strategy based on whatever it is they want to accomplish. So for the person that's, hey, I need to move. This is not a want or a thought. This is happening. It's time for us to go. We need to sell this house so that we can buy something else wherever it is that we're moving to. Let's say it's a job relocation. Well, in that instance, it might not be the best strategy to overprice your home and account for a buyer coming in and negotiating with you, because time is of the essence. In that instance, it might be better to just say, let's price it at what it's worth and let's sell it and let's get this thing done. But there are these little tips and tricks that you can do along the way that will save you real money. So what are some of those things? What are some creative options you should be aware of if you need to sell in order to buy? And I think one of the first steps associated with an upcoming move is to first understand, how much equity you currently have in your home. After expenses, how much cash is sitting in your home that you can use for your upcoming purchase. You'll hear people say things like, hey, the first 5 callers this weekend will get a free report showing the value of your home. I mean, look, here's the reality, guys. It's always free. We're always here to help. We always want you guys to, put together the pieces of the puzzle by putting the border, like the edges together first. And one of those main points is, what would your home sell for if we were to sell it today? What can we do to the property, if anything, if you have the appetite for it, to increase that sale and create a return on investment on the things that you can do to your property? Or if there are things that you choose to neglect, what sort of detriment is that going to have to you? What's that actually going to cost you? So if you guys want some information on what your current home is worth, you want to have a strategy call on what it would look like to sell your property, then I invite you to give me a call. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can email me, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. That's brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So when we come back, I want to talk about some creative ways of structuring some deals rather than just the old school, hey, I'm going to make an offer to purchase your home contingent upon selling my home first. There are a few different ways of going about that I think you should know. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.